But tonight, I'll go head-to-head with a man who actually wants to deport me.
Alex, suicide pills! Alex, mass murder pills!
Okay, let me ask you one question.
Without an overarching mission, you come up with a turkey.
Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the first season of the Cab Show. Tonight, Dalek 14MC once again refutes BlacktailDefense's unsubstantiated claims in part 2 of the BlacktailDefense Refuted series. If you are a conspiracy theorist, flanker or Fulcrum fanboy, Russian propaganda troll, or simply disagree with us, please contact our Skype, which is in the description below. If you found anything wrong with what we said or spotted a mistake, the comment section is open to you. With that said, I'm Everything Man 987.
I'm Dalek 14MC.
I'm IBT98.
I'm the Doge Knight.
Dalek, you have the stage.
Thank you. Last time we left off on Firepower Part 1 of BlacktailDefense's The Real M1 Abrams series. Let us continue. Well, Blacktail, the Abrams is known for having one of the best fire control systems in the world. And by the way, earlier tanks had comparable guns to the Abrams. First of all, which Abrams are you talking about? I assume that you're talking about the M1 A2 SEP, seeing as how most of the data you've cited so far comes directly from that tank, also because it's the variant that you have the most vitriol towards. Now, let's go back to this. Older tanks have comparable guns to the Abrams? Oh, you mean like the Japanese Type 74 you're showing right here, which had a maximum muzzle velocity of only 1400 meters per second? And again, I've never heard anyone say that the gun itself is unique. This is a straw man. No. The M829 series was not collectively known as the Silver Bullet. That name was given to the M829A1 and the A1 only. Oh, here we go. You're absolutely right, Blacktail. Sabos aren't effective for everything, which is why the Abrams comes with several high-explosive anti-personnel and anti-structure rounds. But, knowing you have a very ill-informed problem with that. Blacktail, you are 100% incorrect. The M830 was actually quoted as being very effective against infantry, even when they were hiding in buildings in the urban environments of Iraq. These events dispelled the notion that heat rounds need 98 feet in order to properly arm. However, contrary to this notion, Abrams crews found themselves successfully engaging infantry with M830s without the required distance. The reason the M830 was so successful at killing infantry was its sheer explosive punch and its overpressure, despite being designated as a heat round. This is an absolutely ridiculous claim. Again, you're not taking into account that the M830 could double as an anti-personnel and anti-structure round. The same goes for the MPAT, which went into service in 1994. And then 2 years later, in 1996, we got the HEOR round, or Obstacle Reducing Tracer. Sure, it took us just over a decade to get a few more rounds for the M256 to fire, but not in a time frame that I would consider almost 20 years. Well, that's pretty much all the points that Blacktail has made. Let's move on to part 3. Now, wait a minute. First, you were talking about the ammunition in the context of the first 20 years after the M256 entered service. I mean, you weren't correct, but still, now it seems like you're talking about the M1 family as a whole. As I've said before, several more rounds have entered service. As I've said before, history does not support that claim. Why does this call the US Army's honesty into question? After all, it is a multi-purpose round, as the name implies. No. The fact that the MPAT is able to target helicopters does not compromise its armor penetration. After all, the MPAT does have 2 modes that you have to switch to in order to get the desired effect. If you want to take out a helicopter, you have to switch to the air mode. You can't just target helicopters with the MPAT by default.
Gunner! Air! Chopper! Air up!
If you want to properly destroy ground targets, big surprise, you keep it on the ground mode. And by the way, Blacktail, the fact that the MPAT can target aircraft is an improvement over the M830, something that you were calling into question in your previous chapter. And I gotta say, you don't sound too excited. No. Multi-purpose, Blacktail. Multi-purpose. While it's true that the M830A1 was designed for targeting light armored vehicles, helicopters, and to act as a secondary round for tanks or tank-like targets, it was also designed for targeting personnel, bunkers, buildings, and ATGM platforms. You know, Blacktail, I seriously wonder how many hours it took you to comb through all the articles you could just to find 2 or 3 examples where the MPAT didn't perform up to expectations. Never mind the fact that all the examples you gave are kind of vague and we don't know the exact circumstances under which those events took place. Now, in the past, I have said that the MPAT has a minimized effect against infantry due to its concentrated charge. However, that doesn't really change the fact that tank crews have found that the MPAT does work. In my defense, I would like to quote Colonel Pat White of the 1st Armored Division. The most precise weapon system in the task force was the M1 A1 tank. Tank commanders learned early on that firing a multi-purpose anti-tank round, a high-explosive anti-tank round, or an obstacle-reducing round immediately silence enemy massed formations due to tremendous psychological effects. A tank can fire a main gun round through a window and destroy the enemy while damaging only one room, minimizing collateral damage. Tanks can also create entry points for scouts or infantry by firing a main gun round through the wall of a school, or directly into the side of a building. OR and MPAT rounds are effective in destroying hasty obstacles, and the task force even used the MPAT rounds to suppress enemy dismounts on the street. Except for the fact that the obstacle-reducing tracer is designed for a different purpose, and it functions differently from the MPAT. The HEOR round is specifically designed for destroying concrete structures. Ironically enough, you point out one of the main differences that sets it apart from the MPAT. It's the steel nose of the M908 that allows it to bury into obstacles before destroying them. Of course, what Blacktail isn't going to tell you is that the HEOR round has performed exceptionally well and has received high praises from tank crews. Appearance is not the only thing that matters, Blacktail. You also have to consider the function. Except when the Abrams is under fire and the crew needs to be buttoned up. Now yes, the commander can fire his M2 from inside the tank. However, Blacktail, the canister round provides them ample firepower in order to fight infantry. Plus, heat rounds in urban environments could be problematic for a tank. A high explosive round may damage buildings that could affect the Abrams. The M1028 canister round is the solution to this problem. You see, Blacktail? The Abrams has different rounds for different situations. I find it funny because in the first video, you were criticizing the US Army's tactics for only using the Abrams for one purpose. Yet you're the only one assuming that the Abrams will be in the same situation at any given time. Well, that's really all the points that Blacktail makes in this video. Let's move on to part 4. Nigh useless? Recent events do not support that claim, Blacktail. Funny. You claim that the MPAT was designed for only one purpose, that being destroying vehicles. And you even called it and the HEOR round useless, and yet you just named every single thing that the MPAT and the HEOR round were designed to take out. Are you seriously telling me that you did research on the MPAT and came to the conclusions that you did and didn't see anything about this? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Blacktail. But I'll be fooling myself if I didn't say, that is hard to believe. The rest of the video is simply Blacktail going over proposed rounds that never went into production, while making the same false claims over and over again. Let's move on to part 5. Yes, and I'm going to take a wild guess and say that that's because of the MPAT's complexity. Times change, and the technology has to change as well, and with that comes more spending. Would you be surprised at the fact that a Camaro costs more than a Model T? No, you wouldn't. And again, the MPAT is multi-purpose. It can do more than just a heat round. So yeah, the increase in price does make sense. But here's the thing, the Abrams already has satisfactory smoke grenade launchers, which can fire smoke grenades for both unaided and aided sights. So knowing this, do we really need a round to take up space that does essentially the same thing? What I find funny is that critics of the Abrams always accuse it of being too heavy, too expensive, and overly excessive. And yet they're always the first to complain about things that the Abrams doesn't have. Oh, and by the way, Blacktail, I'm not sure if you realize this, but the Abrams isn't the only tank with a smoothbore. You could easily apply this to the Leopard 2. From this, it's quite clear that BlacktailDefense didn't do any research on this topic. Smoothbores actually have many advantages over rifled guns. For one thing, they're cheaper to produce, they last longer, and they can withstand pressure a lot better. And another major thing is that smoothbores actually have a higher muzzle velocity, because the round doesn't have to waste time of going through all the grooves of a rifled gun. The types of rounds a gun fires is not the only thing that matters, Blacktail. For the most part, the rest of the video is simply BlacktailDefense hyping up rifled guns, while conveniently ignoring the fact that rifled guns decrease the effectiveness of sabot rounds. Next, BlacktailDefense tries to hype up HESH rounds for anti-tank purposes. Yet again, this shows BlacktailDefense's lack of knowledge on the subject. What Blacktail doesn't seem to factor in is that HESH rounds are actually outdated. Their effectiveness has been greatly decreased by the introduction of stall liners. This is why the British Army has decreased their usage of the HESH round. Nowadays, HESH rounds are simply used for anti-material purposes. Of course, BlacktailDefense cites a blue-on-blue incident which occurred in March of 2003 to demonstrate the HESH round's power. Of course, what BlacktailDefense conveniently doesn't tell you is that the Challenger 2 was not destroyed by the usual process a HESH round takes in order to destroy a tank. Here's a little refresher on HESH rounds. HESH rounds, or high-explosive squash head rounds, are filled with explosive plastic which sticks to armor when in contact. The plastic then explodes, causing a scab of metal from the inside of the tank to break off and travel at high velocity. This is called spalling, and it subsequently kills the crew. This effect, however, did not happen in this blue-on-blue incident. The HESH round simply hit the commander's cupola, which, by the way, was open at the time. This allowed fiery debris to enter the turret and start a fire. The fire made its way to the ammo storage, and the ammunition subsequently exploded. However, the Challenger 2 was not penetrated. Now, before I move on to Part 6, I just have to ask, because I'm a little bit confused. Who's doing the omissions and outright lies here again? For the most part, Part 6 is simply an overview of all of the parts in this chapter. And once again, Blacktail makes the same erroneous points. Blacktail makes a lot of comparisons by using these said erroneous points. So essentially, Part 6 is a giant waste of time. What's the point of the comparison when your premise is wrong from the outset? And I certainly don't see any reason for going through it. If you want to watch this video, the link will be in the description.
And that was another wonderful episode of the Cab Show. Remember, we're the coalition against bullshit. We saw Dalek 14MC break down BlacktailDefense's arguments and refute every single one of them. Tune in for the next episode, Episode 7, where IBT98 will be introducing stopping power, knocking down gun myths. I'm EverythingMan987.
I'm Dalek14MC.
I'm the Doge Knight.
And I'm IBT98.
And we'll see you in the next episode.